I don't want our communities and our country to be divided the way that it is. Like, it's unnecessary. When I was growing up, this is not the way policing happened. Like, I remember being maybe 17. I was on my way home. I had swerved a little bit because my pocketbook was open and my wallet fell and was under like where my feet were, where I was driving, and I had reached down to try to get it, and so I had swerved a little bit, and the police pulled me over. It was nighttime, and I understand that I'm white, I get that, and I grew up in a small community, a small town, I get that too. But the police pulled me over. They said, oh, we pulled you over because you swerved, and are you okay? Have you been drinking, this and that? And so I explained to them, oh, my wallet dropped, I picked it up. I understand I swerved a little bit. I was on back roads. There were no other cars. Like, it was, I mean, I used to live like, I guess it was kind of country at the time. Now it's grown up a lot. But it was like a fine incident, no problem. Then by the time I went off to college and I came back home, the whole policing had changed. Like, I was in a parking lot. I had had lunch with a friend. I came back from college. I had lunch with a friend. I was in the parking lot. I pulled out of the parking spot and then started to like go to the end of the parking lot to the stop sign. And when I got to the stop sign, I put my seatbelt on, which it was not very far. I pulled out, I went like this, I stopped, I put my seatbelt on. A cop in the same parking lot followed me out of the parking lot, followed me onto the interstate, and then pulled me over. And when I said, what am I being pulled over for? Well, you started your car and you put it in motion, you backed out, and you didn't have a seatbelt on. I was on private property, like, so he pulled me over on the side of the interstate for that. They wanted to search my car. I had never had any problems with the police, so I was like, yeah, I don't have anything to hide. You can search my car, not a problem. Well, the police officer took everything out of my fucking car. Like, I was coming home from college. Like, you know how much shit I had in my car? Like, they took everything out of my car, like, personal toy devices included, and just left all my shit on the side of the interstate. And they were like, oh, okay, you're good to go, like, you don't have anything. And I'm like, what, are you gonna put all my shit back? Oh no, like, we just tear it apart, we don't put it back. So I was like, wow, like, that's kind of dick, but I mean, okay, from now on I just won't let them search my car. All these years go by. I'm now like, I don't know, 30 maybe? Yeah, I'm like 30. I had to go to downtown St. Pete. This is when I was doing runway modeling. I had to go down to downtown St. Pete to pick up payment for the runway show because we had Fashion Week that week, and I had to get paid from the designers. Leaving from the St. Pete, from the designers or whatever, my gas light came on, so I had put like into Google like gas station near me or whatever. So it took me to the closest gas station, which happened to be like 3 roads over. So like 3rd Street South or 3rd Avenue South. It was like 3 streets over to the south side. Well, the south side is mostly people of color. And at the time, I drove a purple Infiniti with blacked out windows, and my name is Felicia. So let that just resonate with you for a minute. I'm on the south side of St. Pete in a purple Infiniti with blacked out windows, and my name's Felicia. The cop clearly thought that I was a black woman. So I pull in to get gas, and it's a small pump. There's a pump here and a pump here with pumps on each side. So 4 nozzles total. There were 4 cars. So I pulled in behind somebody to make a line. Like, okay, well, when they pull out, I'll pull up, I'll get gas, and I'll head back home. So the car's getting gas. I'm parked behind them. The cop comes in and blocks me in this way. And I thought, I see him in my rearview mirror, and I'm like, that's weird. Like, why didn't he just park in a parking spot? Like, why is he blocking me in like this? Like, what if I need to back out? What if this person doesn't leave first and somebody, like, so anyways, it didn't matter. Next thing I know, I'm sitting there waiting to get gas because my gas light's on, my car's about to like be dead. Knock, knock, knock on my window. Yes? I need your license and registration and insurance and this and that. And I said, for what? Like, did I do something? Because I've been sitting here waiting for gas for a little while. Oh, you're gonna be smart, like, you're gonna be difficult, this and that. And I'm like, I'm just asking what I did. So I give him my information. He comes back, he says, I want to search this car. And I said, no, sir, I don't consent to searches or seizures of my property. Like, I don't give consent to search my car. The reason that I don't give consent to search my car is because of what happened in college when I gave consent to search my car and all my shit was left all over the interstate and I had to pick it up. So I no longer consent to search and seizures. Well, he didn't like that I said no to his search. And he goes, well, I am gonna search this car. And I said, no, sir, you're not. Which he proceeds to tell me, oh, you think you know the law better than me? Like, I'm gonna teach you a lesson today. I'm gonna show you. I'm gonna do what I want. I told you I'm gonna search this car. I'm gonna search this car, yada, yada, yada. And I said, sir, I don't consent to illegal searches. He goes, well, I smell marijuana. The fuck you do? No, you don't. No, you don't. You just made that up because you want to search my car. So I said, sir, there's no marijuana in this car. You do not smell marijuana. There's no marijuana in this car. Like, he goes, it smells like fresh marijuana and smoked marijuana. And I'm like, okay, well, you're welcome to call out a drug dog. I'm not calling out a drug dog. I can smell it. That gives me probable cause, and I can pull you out of the car and search this car. And I said, sir, I don't agree with this. This is not okay. What you're doing is not okay. Like, he tells me to get out of the car. I said, okay, no problem. I'll get out of the car. Out of habit, I got out of the car. I hit the lock. I closed the door. That's what I did every time I got out of my car, ever. I got out of the car, I hit the lock, I closed the door. To me, total normal. Like, this is what you do when you get out of the car to make sure nobody breaks into your car and steals anything. You make sure it's locked. So out of habit, I got out, I locked the door, closed the door, standing there. Like, okay, now what? He reaches for my car handle, and when he realizes it's locked, he lost his fucking mind. He starts cursing at me. He tells me, now you're going to jail for obstruction. You're impeding my investigation. He puts me in handcuffs. He's like, oh, you think you're a smart ass? You think you're slick, blah, blah, blah. You think you know the law better than I do? He's like, I'm taking you for obstruction and I'm searching this car. He went crazy. So he puts me in handcuffs. He reaches into my front pocket. I've got on tiny little shorts at this time. Like, it's the middle of summer, I think it was. So anyways, he reaches into my front pocket, which he's not allowed to reach into my pockets. You can do a Terry stop and you can pat me down, but like, you cannot reach into my pockets like that. Like, you're a male officer. That's next to my vagina. Like, you can't just put your hand, like, here's my vagina, here's your hand. Like, you can't do that as a male officer. You should have called a female officer out. So anyways, they never call a female officer out. They never call a dog out, nothing. They proceed to search my car. He calls like 4 other officers. They proceed to search my car. They broke my armrest. They broke my glove box. They broke all kinds of shit. And of course, they're not responsible for fixing any of that. They're not responsible for paying for any of that. So, sorry about that. My camera died, so I had to go get a new battery. So anyway, so yeah, so they tell me they're gonna take me to jail. Then the guy went into my Louis Vuitton wallet. Like, do you know how much a Louis Vuitton wallet cost? Like, he went into my Louis Vuitton wallet and he goes, oh, you've got $1,000 cash? I was like, yeah, I just got paid for doing Fashion Week that's coming up. I just left from the designer. He goes, I think this is drug money. I'm keeping this. And he put it in his pocket. I'm like, you think it's drug money, but you found no drugs in my car. You just tore my car apart for 2 hours. You found no drugs and you think it's drug money? He goes, yep, I think this is drug money, so I'm confiscating it. So he puts it in his pocket. He has this elderly gentleman, this elderly police officer, take me to jail. So on the way to jail, I'm like, so what do I do? Like, everything this guy did was illegal. He violated my rights. I've done nothing wrong. I've broken no laws. And now you guys are gonna hem me up, put me in a jail with a bunch of criminals, people that might have STDs because they're prostitutes, God knows what. Like, and on top of that, my sister works at this fucking jail doing administrative work. Like, when people go into jail, hi girlfriend. When people go into jail, she's the one that like writes down all their information, what their charges are, what their name is, what their bond is, all this shit. That's what my sister's job is at this jail that they're taking me to. So I'm like, so what do I do? How do I get myself out of jail? Like, what happens? Do I have to see a judge? Like, what's the deal? So he said, well, you can bond yourself out. And I said, good, how do I do that? He goes, well, if you have any cash. I said, I do have cash. I said, I've got $1,000 in my wallet. I said, did they give you all of my belongings? He said, yeah, they gave me all of your belongings, but they didn't give me any cash. And I'm like, in the back seat with my hands like, and I'm like, wait, what? What do you mean they didn't give you any cash? Like, there's $1,000 in my wallet. He goes, no, like, they didn't, like, your wallet's empty. He, like, opens it, it's empty. And I said, the officer put it in his pocket. Like, so this elderly officer who was honest, who was an honest man, pulls over on the side of 275 because they arrested me in Southside St. Pete, 3 roads onto South Side, but it doesn't matter. I was on the South Side. And drove me all the way to Largo, to the police station, to the jail or whatever on, I think that's 86th. I think that's what it is. So between St. Pete and Largo, 275 is the interstate. They pulled over off the interstate and he called the other officer and he said, this young lady says that she has $1,000 cash. Is that true? And I guess that the officer must have said yes. I don't know what he said, but the elderly officer is the only one I could hear. And he said, well, I'm parked at, I think it was a Holiday Inn or Suites Inn or something. He said, off of this exit, you need to bring this girl's money. So I'm sitting in handcuffs in the back of the car waiting for this crooked ass officer to bring my money that he stole out of my Louis Vuitton wallet, because $1,000 apparently to him is a lot of money. Do you know how many times my grandfather gave me a $10,000 check that I cashed and then had in a brown paper bag in the back of my trunk? Could you imagine had he pulled me over and I had just cashed a check from my grandfather for $10,000 and all the money was sitting in a brown paper bag? He would have stolen all of my fucking money, because apparently that's a lot of money to some people. Wow. So I bail myself out of jail. I go, I get my car. Oh, also, the guy that wanted to illegally search my car, the guy that did illegally search my car and then illegally arrested me and then illegally reached into my pocket and took my keys and illegally stole my $1,000, that guy, he also wanted to tow my car. Which the elderly gentleman that took me to jail was like, we don't need to tow her car. It's on private property. We can just park it in the parking spot for her. Like, we don't have to tow it. Thank God for the elderly officer, like, who's obviously been doing this a long ass time, because he was the only one that was decent. He's the only one that had common sense. He's the only one that did anything like by the law. So anyways, thank God I didn't have to get my car out of tow. But had the elderly guy not been there, I would have had to also get my car out of tow for doing nothing wrong, for waiting for gas. Literally did nothing wrong. They wouldn't even tell me why he came up and asked for my ID and registered. Like, he couldn't give me a reason. So I go to court, I represent myself in court. By the time I go to court, I've requested the body cam footage and the dash cam footage. Guess what? Oh, we can't give that. We don't have that. We can't give that. You can't have access to that. Well, why not? If you guys did nothing wrong, why can't I have access to the camera footage? So still to this day, I put in multiple requests, but they still will not give it to me. I think because they know their officer fucked up and they don't want a lawsuit. So anyway, so I go to court, I represent myself, the cop shows up, and then they say, oh, we're waiting for this other officer because he clocked her speeding. Speeding while I was parked at a gas pump? Speeding? Really? Like, how was I speeding parked at a fucking gas pump? Like, it didn't make any sense. So the officer that supposedly clocked me speeding never showed up. Never showed up. The officer that falsely arrested me, illegally searched my car, tried to steal my money, all of that shit, he did show up and then proceeded to lie on the stand. Well, the thing is I told the judge, I was like, well, if they would give me the footage, it would show that he's lying and I'm telling the truth, but they don't want to give me the footage. I said, but what they did give me is the police reports. 3 different police reports that said 3 different things. The first police report was the closest to what actually happened, the whole story I just told you. Then the second report made it sound like I was resisting arrest and obstructing. You would have thought that I took my keys and threw them in the bottom of the lake in order for him to have to go get them to get my car, like by the time you got to the second police report. Then by the time you read the third police report, it was completely different. I seemed like I was a criminal. I was up to no good. I was just fishing for trouble. Like, so I said, well, which one of these reports is true? Because they can't all be true, because they all say something different. So which story do you want to go with now that you're sitting in front of a judge? Anyways, needless to say, I beat the state. I beat my case. I got my money back for being locked up in jail, because you got to pay. You got to pay for your stay in jail. You got to pay to get out of jail. I got all my money back. And then I said to the judge, I said, would you have let them search your car? If you got pulled over, would you have let them search your car? He said, no, I wouldn't have. I go, oh, okay. I said, but when I say no, then it's a problem. They never call that a drug dog. Like, oh, I wonder if I could get the video footage of us being in court that day, because that was so good. My husband was there in his suit. He looked so handsome. And my husband actually, like, went to school for law. But anyways, so I was in the court and I was like, did you find a lighter? No. Did you find a joint? No. Did you find a roach? No. Did you find a smoking pipe? No. Did you find a bong? No. And my husband's going, you can't say bong. You can't, it's a water pipe. You can't say bong. So the judge was laughing kind of like under his breath, and he was like, listen, I'm sure you're a smoker. If you know all these terms, I'm sure you're a smoker. He was like, so, and he's like, just don't let your car smell like pot. And I was like, yeah, my car didn't smell like pot. And he kind of looked at me, he goes, sure it didn't. And I'm like, it really didn't. So after that incident is when I started watching these like First Amendment auditors and stuff like that, because I'm like, man, like they went from not really fucking with people to fucking with people on a regular basis. And after they had arrested me and I went into their little computer system, I proceeded to get pulled over for like the next year. Like, one time I got pulled over for going under the speed limit. Another time I got pulled over because I was gonna make a left-hand turn and traffic was coming, so I had stopped and I was sitting at the light waiting to make a left-hand turn, but I couldn't because of oncoming traffic. And when I got to the light, it was green, and I was there so long that it went from green to yellow to red. But because my bumper was over the white line where the crosswalk is, the cop pulled me over. He said I was obstructing the crosswalk, even though nobody used the crosswalk. Nobody walked across it. And then I was like, so what should I do in the future? He goes, well, what you do, it's gonna be up to you. And I said, well, I just did what was up to me, and you pulled me over to fuck with me. So they were just fucking with me just to be like harassing, just to be like, oh, look, we've got your information, we've got your name, we know what car you drive, we're just gonna fuck with you because we can. And it got so bad that literally my husband and I, like, we bought a new car and put everything in his name so that if they get behind me, they don't just run my plate and then just fuck with me. Like, that's how bad it got. So I no longer trust the police. I no longer respect the police. Are there some good ones? Sure, maybe, but if there were good ones, there wouldn't be bad ones, because the good ones would report the bad ones, but they can't, because the gang members bully up on the good guys, like, oh, don't do anything or say anything that's gonna get us in trouble, or we're gonna make your life hell. So, you know, it's all just a bunch of bullshit is what it is. So that's what got me started with watching these First Amendment audits and all that.